part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright. You're listening to the Krypton Report.
It's that time again. Not Christmas, not Halloween, but gather around, family, and listen to tales of the days of turkey long gone. It's me, Tyler, and with my chum, James. What's up, buddy?
What's up?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Man, I love Thanksgiving.
Football and food.
You know,
family.
Football, food, and family. For me, it's family and food. Yeah. But, you know, long ago, I remember this dude I was working with said that he loved Thanksgiving because there was no obligation to it other than getting together and having a meal. And I always loved Thanksgiving because of that. There's always that pre-Christmas hype, you know, of like the holiday season's about to kick off. It's still technically fall, though this year it feels more winter. So it's just, I don't know. I love Thanksgiving and the time off, especially, you know, with working in the schools. Like you have that feeling. The kids are out for an extra couple of days. And I've come to just really appreciate Thanksgiving. I miss cooking Thanksgiving with my wife. Maybe we'll do it next year. This year's my mother-in-law's turn. But, you know, and let me crack a cold one. Ready? That's for my man, Big D.
Dwayne.
Yep. We're on a first-name basis.
Oh, first-name basis.
I call him he calls me, shut the hell up.
Nice.
But this is our Thanksgiving special, and we just thought we'd keep it, you know, on the down low and just enjoy a chat and some other just things.
Yeah, the one where James chases underdog and Tyler puts a turkey on his head.
Just a little behind the scenes thing is when I name the episodes, I usually incorporate something what we're going to talk about, but I name them the way episodes were named on the TV show Friends, where it's like the one where
Yeah, the one where Rachel finds out. Something like that.
So I started doing that because it helped me keep track of things, and I always try to come with creative titles just to make James chuckle.
Yeah, sometimes I can't read them out loud, but this was a good one.
Combining two different episodes of Friends.
Thanksgiving episodes of Friends.
Which, you know, usually every year on Thanksgiving, usually it's either the night before or the after we eat, I will watch most all of the Thanksgiving episodes of Friends. There's a couple that are but for the most part, Friends always had a Thanksgiving episode, and those were like a big deal. And then the other show I like to watch Thanksgiving is there's 3 episodes of That 70s Show that has Thanksgiving episodes. And they just put that back on Peacock. So Janine and I have been just kind of enjoying revisiting that show because I was excited because I remember they used to have marathons of That 70s Show Thanksgiving.
That's funny. We have been watching That 70s Show as well.
It's also me
Peacock.
ramping up. It's also me ramping up for That 90s Show. And
yeah.
Janine was like, "Oh, that 90 is that?" She goes, "Oh, is that Eric and Donna as parents?" I said, "Sorta," but I was like, "It's even better." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "It's Eric and Donna's daughter being dropped off to live with Red and Kitty for the summer." I'm like, and I love the character of Red.
Oh yeah, Red and Kitty are phenomenal. They're great parents. Yeah, I I'm really excited for that show because it's going to be Red and Kitty the whole time. It's going to be in the same house. I'm really looking forward to how they do
90s nostalgia.
modernize their house, how they update their house.
Update for the future past.
Yeah,
of the 90s.
it's not going to look like it did in the 70s.
Or will it?
and like so what's it going to look like for the 90s, as well as it's the 90s. It's not now.
Yeah.
It's the
Sure.
like there's big differences between the 70s and the 90s, but there are huge differences between the 90s and now.
Yeah. Yeah. Easily. Yeah. So that's that podcast, that 70s Show podcast.
Oh, dude, I would totally do that.
So would I.
Rewatch that 70s show and talk about it.
That would burn. We could burn. We might have. So this is a preview for next year on our Patreon, our $1 Patreon. We are going to review 1, maybe 2 episodes of Friends Thanksgiving and that 70s Show. So next year's Thanksgiving special will be on Patreon, and it'll be a good time. We kind of had that epiphany too late to do anything about it.
Yeah, it like literally happened last night.
I was like, dude. But we're going to talk about Ambush, a episode of Smallville that revolves around Thanksgiving. And I always thought Superman, I always thought Superman was a great character for Thanksgiving. I think he's also a great one for Christmas. And so, like, doing a Halloween Superman story doesn't really work as well. You can do a great Halloween Batman story, like if you actually want to do something with the holiday. But I think there's something about Thanksgiving that really works with the character of Superman.
Yeah, but you got to admit that Superman wearing a mask for Halloween is really funny.
Oh, it is.
Especially he's like, when I can't see through this thing.
Oh, I mean, it's great. I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to write continual, like, what characters work on the holiday, like a Batman Thanksgiving, you can write a story. I mean, you can do it, but it just doesn't click as well.
Yeah, I mean, it'll get very emotional when it comes to the time of, like, Batman and the Bat family to have, like, Thanksgiving dinner or something like that, but no, Superman definitely lends for a more potential wholesome atmosphere to a Thanksgiving story.
Last year, I wrote my own comic script for a Kent's Thanksgiving. And I just did it out of, fun because, like I said, I thought the characters would serve well for Thanksgiving. So it was pretty dope.
Well, especially now that he's married, has a child. The Kents are back alive again.
Yeah, like now it'd be amazing because you have Connor, Kara, Kong Keenan, the 2 new kids whose names I can't remember at the moment, and Natalie with John Henry. I mean, a super family Thanksgiving would be amazing.
John Henry Irons and Natasha.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie.
So what I asked James was, James, what's your favorite thing about Thanksgiving and your favorite Thanksgiving food?
My Thanksgiving food. Let's see. I mean, that's a toughie because I like so much. But when I go back, I always get extras of turkey and or ham, mashed potatoes, and croissants.
Mm.
I always get seconds of that.
That sounds yummy.
But, my first plate, I got a bowl of salad. I've got my veggies there, too. So, once I go through that, I go back for the heavy stuff.
Interesting. James likes to pace himself.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you make Thanksgiving, usually most places I go to when you make Thanksgiving dinner, it's served at like 2:00, and
It's
then
the
you
best.
can just eat it for the rest of the night.
Right, it's the best. I love having like a 1:00 Thanksgiving. So it's just about like a late lunch, and like you said, you can just chill, leave out the leftovers, pick as you go. Yeah, that's the best. White meat or dark meat, James?
I usually prefer white meat, but I do get a little bit of dark meat there.
This is why James and I probably could sit down and polish off a turkey together.
Oh yeah,
Back in
I'll
the
eat
day.
most of the white meat. You eat most of the dark meat.
Yep. My grandma one year looked at me and she goes, "There's always leftover dark meat. No one ever gets it. There's always plenty." And I was like, "Grandma, you're right." So I adapted to eating the dark meat. Always plenty of leftovers for me. Everyone else
Dark
was
meat's good.
I know, right?
It's good, yeah.
I'm digging on the dark side. But hey, those are our Thanksgiving stories. It's time to talk about one about Clark Kent. So we're going to get into Ambush. Ambush was in season 10. So if you are not caught up on Smallville, or you don't know much about the whole plot of Smallville, this is going to be kind of spoiler because, we're not doing a Smallville retrospective right now. We've talked about the pilot. We've talked about things here and there. But like I said, this is a Thanksgiving-based episode. There are some Supergirl episodes that are Thanksgiving-based, but we've covered those as we covered the show. And I'm pretty sure that we did talk about the other episode of Smallville before that was Thanksgiving-based. This was the second one.
I feel like we have.
Yes. So I was like, man, I've been trying to find, I used to have a spreadsheet, and I've been trying to find if I can download one from Libsyn of like every episode produced and everything, because I'm trying to make sure have everything together so I don't recreate things. But Ambush was season 10, episode 7. Now, this episode is right after the episode Harvest, where basically the first moments of that episode is Clark telling Lois that he is, for lack of a better term, the Blur. God, I hate that. But it was November 5th, 2010, which is interesting that it aired that early because there was 2 more episodes after it, which occurred before Thanksgiving, but whatever. So season 10, episode 7, Clark is far from impressed that Lois barely dares rebuke her kid sister's mean pranks on both of them, while squirming for each even offensive whim of Pa, full General Sam Lane as their Thanksgiving guest. This is a horrible IMDb summary. Clark firmly but politely hosts the Lanes while reasoning against the General's support for a bill to make registration compulsory for superheroes, an obvious trap given the congressional supporters. While Oliver investigates them, Clark saves everybody from a rocket launched by Rick Flag.
It's an awful description.
Yes, it is. I should have read it beforehand, but usually they have really good ones. So basically, the episode opens up, we're on the farm, and Lois and Clark are together, being very, very flirtatious. I don't know about
And
you,
adventurous.
I got a little hot under the collar. I was watching this.
I mean, Erica Durant's in the nothing but a football jersey.
She gives Clark's the eyes, and he's like, "The bedroom's upstairs, Lois," and she's like, "But this way's the porch swing." I was like, "All right." I was like, "Good job, Clark." I was like, "Way to go!" But then, what happens, James?
General Lane and Lucy show up.
But you know what I thought to myself? This is all funny and awkward, as they're making out, about to go on the porch, and there's General Sam Lane, played by the wonderful Michael Ironside. Why didn't Clark use his super hearing to hear the car pulling up, considering they're on a farm and not many people just randomly show up?
Well, one, I mean, sometimes it's about focus. Other times, but the thing I did think was messed up in that is it doesn't matter if he has super hearing. When you live in the country and somebody's coming down your driveway, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know. You see it, you hear it, you know.
And a lot of times, okay, you have animals on the farm that start barking. You know, like Shelby, the dog that comes and goes on this show. But they just show up and out of nowhere, and we meet Lucy, who's played by Peyton List, who would later go on to be Golden Glider on The Flash, and Michael Ironside would be Leonard Mr. Snart. I can't remember his first name on The Flash. But they just randomly show up. And they're like, Happy Turkey Day. And I'm like, talk about awkward, man. Like, about to swing low on the porch swats, you know? And ain't getting that sweet chariot. You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That would definitely put a damper in the mood.
But basically, you know, the backstory is they show up, and it's supposed to be this big deal about General Lane is trying to push this bill about registration. He's being blocked. Who's he being blocked by? Senator Martha Kent. And, you know, he looks down on Clark. He's also doing, you know, his job as a father of looking out for his daughters and the men that they keep in their lives. And General Lane, you know, Lois asks Clark to play nice, gives Clark a list of chores to do. And here, I will read you the list, James.
I was going to say, it's like 20 strenuous chores.
It says, chop and stack 1 cord of wood.
Which is like number 17.
Repaint barn door. Rotate tires on truck. Clean stables. Fresh gravel on driveway. Put up storm windows. Clean gutters. Scrub pantry. Iron all linen. Wash windows. Till garden. Fix gate. Re-roof chicken coop. Grease windmill. Stack hay in barn. Paint silo. Scrub bathroom tile with toothbrush. Recaulk shower. Fix weather vane. Which, ironically, Clark accomplishes all the chores, and Sam says no one person could have done all this. Clark's like, well, I did it. So it's kind of funny.
He accomplished all that. He put out a fire.
That's my favorite scene, is when Clark comes back from the grocery store with more groceries to make Thanksgiving, which I thought it was kind of weird that it's supposed to be Thanksgiving Day, is what I took it as, right? The way that they talked, but they're staying there for a couple of days, but yet a store was open for Clark to get groceries. Depends on what store and what hemisphere. Maybe he went somewhere far away, like Canada, who doesn't have Thanksgiving Day. I don't know. But I was just like, you know how Smallville is, where they don't know what day it is when they make the episode.
Yeah. Well, and if it's filmed up in Canada, I mean, is everything, like, is Thanksgiving up there? Is everything closed like it is here?
No, I mean, Canada doesn't have Thanksgiving. Theirs is a different day.
Theirs is some sort of day in October. October, I believe. Yeah.
Yep. So, I also forgot to mention that Michael Ironside voiced Darkseid in Superman the Animated Series. So,
yes, and Justice League Unlimited. I mean, he's he's like the voice you hear when you read Darkseid.
So,
You know, I mean, when it comes to like reading the Joker, it's Mark Hamill. When it comes to reading Batman, it's Kevin Conroy. When it comes to reading Darkseid, it's Michael Ironside.
true. So I do find this funny. Okay, go with me on this. There's a line that Sam says to Clark about putting all of Lois's boyfriends through the ringer, through the tests. And I got thinking to myself, Lois dated like Aquaman for a bit. She dated Grant Gabriel. She dated Oliver Queen. Where was General Lane then?
Right. Well, certainly the boyfriends that grew up in or that they were from when they were growing up, you know, when the dad was around more, when, you know, Lois wasn't outliving her life. And I'm sure if there were any holidays that would have had family get-togethers, like she dated Arthur for like a day and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I thought
she dated Oliver for like a month and a half.
and her and Clark just officially got really together for like 2 episodes.
Yeah,
But this is Smallville time.
but he has known Clark since season 4.
He has, and that's what's funny. Clark's that guy that's just been around and all of a sudden becomes a threat. We're like, whoa. Now you change your intentions with my daughter. Now, I do like how Sam's like tries to intimidate Clark, like basically refers to living at the farm like you're still living in your mom's house. Clark's like, her name is primarily on the deed, but it's, you know, he's like the family farm, like taking care of my family farm.
Yeah, it's not quite just living at your mom's house.
I mean, it's a historic, like a family farm. You know, technically, if his mom's name's on the deed, I guess yes, it would be her house. But it was Hiram's home first, who then left it to Jonathan, who would then leave it to Clark. So it's, you know, but from a person who's in the military who's used to moving and just kind of shipping out and everything, the idea of having that might be foreign to them.
That's true. Nowhere to set up roots.
So we meet Rick Flag in this episode. Well, we don't meet him, but for a discussion point, Rick Flag's in this episode. And this isn't the fun-loving, really true blue soldier, good guy that Joel Kinnaman was. This is like dirty, underhanded Flag. And what's funny is the actor who plays Flag was the admiral in the movie Suicide Squad, who was at the dinner table with Amanda Waller.
Yes, sir, he was. And he was also... who was he? In an earlier season of Smallville. This is his second role in Smallville.
I really hate when they do that.
Yeah.
Like, they started doing that in Supernatural. I'm like, did all the actors in Canada run out?
Right? Like, aren't there younger, up-and-coming ones?
I'm like, did you really just burn through every actor that you could?
I mean, when you're on a show for 10 and 15 years, and it's possible you reuse actors for certain stuff. Because I mean, the guy who played the Doctor and the cage fighter MC in the Titan episode,
Mm-hmm.
he played 2 different roles on Smallville.
Yep.
I mean, it's just as an example, there are a number of them.
Oh, there are. So what happens next is we have they're having the awkward dinner. Clark, when we were talking about the groceries, we got off on our tangent. There's a major fire going on, and Lois looks at him like, "Would you say there's a fire sale, Clark?" He's like, "Huh?" And then he runs, puts out the fire, and comes back. And like they're literally like Sam turns on, like he literally turns, see the TV screen, the fire's out, and then he turns back and there's Clark coming back into the house. And he's like, "I thought you said Clark was upstairs, Lois." He's like, "Yes, yeah, sure." It's very good. Like it's not exactly a bottled episode, but at the same time, like we're only on the farm, and we have the cutaways, like the van where Flag is, and then the apartment of the Talon. And basically, General Lane basically says Clark Kent's hiding something. Does some digging, says that no one has a record that clean unless somebody erased it. And just calls, basically, he's a liar. Clark stands up to the general. And then, Lane tells Lois, "Let's go." And she doesn't stand up for herself there. So they go back to the Talon apartment, and that's where they have the big fallout, where Lois stands up to her father. But what we find out is that Flag had tricked Lucy into putting a pin on Sam.
A tracking device.
And they launch a rocket to kill Sam. Well, that ink pen, that's a tracking device, had been taken out and left in the apartment, so the bomb goes into the Talon and explodes. Now, rewind a beat. Oliver, the Green Arrow, and Tess are at Watchtower. And this is after Chloe has left, and Oliver comes back, and we find out that the Suicide Squad by Flag have left subdermal tattoos on Clark and Oliver. And that leads them to deducing certain things. And Clark goes to Watchtower, and he wears the jacket, the beautiful jacket. It should get more credit, because I get so tired of people putting Tom Welling in a Superman suit online. All this fan artwork. He never wore a suit. Use the red jacket.
Yeah, put him in what he wore, I mean, it's unique to this show. It's not the end all, when it comes
But that's
to
him.
Yeah, it's not the end all when it comes to the Superman character, but you didn't get to see that part. Like, yeah, definitely I think they should use the jacket more.
In my panel that I did from the Comic Cons, and I did a scene with Clark, Superman, I did this jacket because to me that is more of Smallville than some other things that people like to use. But anyways, people, we get to see the jacket, and then we get one of my favorite scenes in Smallville of the bomb going off, and everything goes to slow motion, and you just see Clark run in, grab Lois, and run out. And while Sam and Lucy are looking at the explosion, there's Lois behind them, coughing. And then we're back on the farm. After Clark, Big Blue Boy Scout, and that's my Superman movie, by the way. Big Blue Boy Scout, better than the Blur. And Green Arrow busts Flag in his van. But they show back up on the farm, and they're having Thanksgiving dinner, and they're getting everything ready. Lois actually cooked, and it wasn't a disaster, so that's a positive. That's like the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah,
it's one of the great Lois traits.
Yeah, she can't cook,
and so, excuse me. Sam and Clark have this conversation about the Vigilante Registration Act and what it means to be. He tells Clark that all the times being gone serving his country meant a lot, but he wished he'd been home with the family. And that hit me hard because my dad was in the service and he was gone a lot at holidays. And so I'm like on the opposite of that, because like I've had conversations like that with my dad about the importance of things and being at home. And that's kind of why I am the way that I am about my life, my job, and what I do with the kids. Because I don't want to be like that and be gone. But basically, that's my little side emotional tangent. But all that to say,
this is a safe space, Tyler.
yeah, this is a safe space. All that to say that basically Sam is doing that. And there's this underlining that he may know that Clark is the Blur. And how did you take that conversation?
Which conversation?
In the barn where he's talking to Clark.
Oh,
you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it can kind of be hinted that way. It's certainly not flat out. But I think, I do like how Michael Ironside pulls back, you know, like he's real hard against Clark. He's real hard against, the vigilantes with the Vigilante Registration Act, and especially the Blur.
Mm-hmm.
But he does. I always liked how he was like, you know, he still says like all of them aren't the Blur, but
they don't have the honor code that the Blur has.
Yeah. And then Tom Welling's reaction to it, you know what I mean? Like if they were actually having that real conversation, I mean, you definitely think that General Lane knows that he's the Blur, especially from his reactions and stuff. But
I would have I think he has an extremely strong leaning towards he is, but I don't think he knows the extent of what the Blur is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have the thought that maybe he's just, you know, metahuman, but they don't know that he's actually.
Well, I mean, they don't know he's an alien or anything.
So, yeah. But, and then they also, you know, they're eating, and it ends happy, and it's just a really, really good Thanksgiving time. And I really like it, but you know, at the same time, like we were joking, like it'd been really cool to do an episode like this where if General Lane had shown up, and kind of like the one where Michael McKean and Martha show up and everything, just and surprise them. It'd been kind of neat if we had General Lane and Lucy, Martha and Perry White, and then like Clark has to keep trying to find a way to like ditch out and do stuff while everybody's sitting there talking. It could be very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a really fun episode, and it'd be much more of a bottle episode than this was with the Suicide Squad and with the Vigilante Registration Act that's going on.
So I'm just saying, like, it would have been like almost like a stage play. Kind of could have been fun of like just trying to have Thanksgiving dinner. I think would be a fun story. But that is the second Smallville Thanksgiving episode, and it's kind of just in the background, but it's still about family. This is why on Peacock, James's icon is Vin Diesel. It's all about family.
Yeah, you changed that. That was funny. At first, when I turned it on and I saw it, I was like, "Wait, hold on!" And I looked. I had to go back out, and I was like, "Okay, this is Tyler switched it." This is my profile. Tyler changed it.
I was like, Halloween's over, dude. Back to family time.
Right.
But from our families here at Krypton Report, happy Thanksgiving. If it's also Thanksgiving is also a cool holiday because it's not a religious holiday. It's just a time to pause and be thankful for everything you have. And just looking back on the good, even through trials and whatever you've suffered in the past year or so, look for the good. And that's what Thanksgiving is about, is being grateful. So I'm grateful for my family, my friends. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to just chat with James about comics, movies, super stuff.
I was going to say, what are you most thankful for Superman wise this year?
Yes, that was the other question. Henry Cavill's cameo in Black Adam.
I was going to say the same thing. When it comes to Superman, I mean, I think that's kind of like the biggest answer you'd get this year. Which, when it comes to that, you see all those. Did you see the James Gunn, before we leave here? Did you see the James Gunn comment on one of those?
I love it.
On one of those.
Dude.
Oh, you sent a screenshot of that, didn't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
Where James Gunn's like, oh, do they? Because I'm pretty sure that unless someone's wiretapping me and Safran's phones, they don't know anything because we don't know everything yet.
Yeah.
And it's basically there's no contract. Like,
he's like,
this is
no
not his
one knows.
It's like, no one knows until we get done planning this.
Yeah.
So it's nice that James Gunn is being that active.
Yeah, I love that he's being active about it. And in my opinion, okay, Henry Cavill was super professional and quiet on all fronts when it came to Superman and Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder, because it was a circus, you know, which is still going on because we got the Black Adam to Black Panther comparisons, which we're not going to get into. Maybe we can get into later.
I'm not thankful for that. So.
But as professional as he was, everything that he did, right? And then he comes in, he does the cameo, and then he goes to Instagram to say, I'm back. So for all the years that this man was being super professional about the Superman and everything else, he's going to come to Instagram, say he's back, and not actually have a signed contract for at least one freaking picture. All these people who are posting like Henry Cavill's contract is not done, he was only contracted for a cameo, blah, 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 blah. I think that's just stupid and clickbait. As professional as he was for years.
Oh, yeah.
And then he comes out and says that, puts it on Instagram saying, I wanted to wait, but I'm back. Like, no. Henry Cavill has a contract. It's just stupid to think otherwise.
There's probably a lot more details that are going into everything. But
oh, absolutely. But sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I was going to say, speaking of the Black Adam thing, we just got Black Adam released digitally. So if you haven't seen it in the theaters, or even if you have and you want to watch it again, watch.
You can purchase it digitally.
You can purchase it. Yes, it's on video on demand to rent and to buy digitally.
I must say, I couldn't remember if it was to rent yet. I think it's weird when they
saw
do
it was rent and buy.
I think it's weird, like, okay, because I was looking at Lyle Crocodile for the kids because that was one we didn't get a chance to go to the theater to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not on video on demand. They just released it for digital purchase. And then you can rent it like in December.
Oh.
I'm like, that's just weird. Like, do the video on demand as the next phase where you can purchase or you can video on demand it and then release it for like the $3.99 rental and physical media release.
Absolutely. I did see the Black Adam was $19.99 on Vudu because I was on there watching Smallville. It was $19.99 for a rental, $24.99 to buy it.
See, that makes sense. For a video on demand for a movie that's still in theaters, that makes sense. So let's pump up those numbers for Thanksgiving and be thankful that The Rock delivered such an amazing DC film that we'll be talking about more in the future. And the last Thanksgiving Day surprise. I was doing some digging, James.
Uh-huh.
And sadly, I could not find, as of yet, the first episode of the Last Daughter podcast that became this podcast. But I think the first episode was just bullcrap. But I found the second episode. So stick around when we're done talking now, and you can re-listen to the dumpster fire that was the second episode of what one day would become the Krypton Report.
Nice.
And the last thing we have, this is our special here.
This is from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Till Christmas. We will be giving away a digital copy of The Batman as to say thanks from us to you. But what we're saying is keep your eye on our social media as we will be teasing it out, and we'll give you the details of how to enter to win your own copy of 4K digital The Batman. So from James and myself, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, the Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our information. $1 a month. You'll get extra special content that you don't get on the main show, like movie commentaries and whatever else comes out of our mouths. So check it out, patreon.com/Krypton Report.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
As the infant Kal-El was blasted to Earth from the dying planet Krypton, he was the last survivor as he previously thought. His uncle, Zor-El, also sent a ship. Within that ship was his daughter, Kara Zor-El, who Earth would know as Supergirl. Welcome to The Last Daughter of Krypton, the Supergirl podcast for the upcoming CBS series Supergirl, and also for the proposed Sci-Fi Channel series Krypton. Welcome to the Southgate Media presentation. Welcome back to the next episode. Glad you guys are back with me. I apologize for the time delay for the episodes. Things are a little bit crazy. If you follow me on any of my other podcasts here at Southgate, you'll recognize the fact that I just had a child. So my little solo, keeping me up at night. Last night kept me up, so we decided to watch Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut and the Richard Lester cut. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check it out. It's pretty sweet. All right, guys. Since last time we didn't get to touch on one of the aspects of this show, we're going to do it now. Now, this show is dedicated to the upcoming Supergirl show, but there is another show that goes along with what we've discussed. It's the upcoming sci-fi projected series called Krypton. Now, I don't know how many of you out there are watching Gotham, like you should, and listening to some Before the Bat, the Gotham podcast, but the idea of a Superman prequel series set on Krypton is really interesting. It's supposed to tie into the Man of Steel universe, which is really cool, and I'll bring up a fact of that. But here's my thing. Sci-Fi Channel, cool. There's not been really any good sci-fi series on in a while. But the budget for the show would be really interesting, because we don't want to make it look cheap, but it's got to look like it belongs with Man of Steel. Now, here's my thing, and this is something they probably won't touch on because we are getting the Supergirl TV series. But if they do a Krypton series, and it's supposed to be connected to Man of Steel, I don't know how many of you out there have read the limited edition. Now, you can find it online. I'll post it on the Twitter for this show later on. There is a prequel comic to Man of Steel that you find out that the scout ship that Clark finds actually belongs to Kara, as in Kara Zor-El, as in Supergirl. Now, in this Man of Steel canon, they're not making her his cousin. They're making her some sort of other relative, descendant, which is fine. I mean, I'll kind of go with it. But I guess in the comic it alludes to the fact that she was on the ship, it crashed on Earth. And the way it ends, I kind of read it as she went back into like a hypersleep, maybe sent out a distress signal, and then for some reason woke up and sent the signal. It's debatable that in the movie they say it was Clark that sent the signal that Zod found and came there. But in the comic it could be from Kara, not sure. And that open pod that Clark sees is Kara's on the ship. Now, that would explain that, and it would find a way of bringing Supergirl out. It also opens more questions. Was Kara, she wasn't in hypersleep the whole time, was she on Earth? And what was she doing? So, and I remember reading Goyer. Originally, they had cut that little clip of the open pod, and Goyer and Snyder both insisted it had to be in the film. So there is a significance to it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe Krypton, the series, would address something with Zor-El, or maybe not. I don't know. I mean, what are the possible significance of Krypton, the series, other than just being a space epic? Will we see colonization? Will we see anything? A young Zod? I mean, a young Jor-El? How is this show going to develop? So it's something to think about. What are your thoughts on Krypton, the series? Will it work? I mean, it's kind of like just ripping off Gotham, but at the same time, would it be better than Gotham, seeing that there's limited characters to play with and everything else is pretty much open? What's your thoughts? We have our Supergirl, and I'm not familiar with her work, but she was in the movie Whiplash that I do want to see, so that's exciting. And I don't know about you guys, but I trust the casting. Was it Rappaport casting? Same one who does for Flash and Arrow. And so far, I haven't disagreed with any of their casting choices. We can argue about Ra's al Ghul, but you'll hear that over at the Flash Power Hour. But as far as Melissa here, Supergirl, I'm okay. Like, I'll give it a shot. She looks like she can pull it off, and I'm going to roll with it. Our other is Jimmy Olsen. Now, this one, I will say, I'm kind of intrigued by. How are you guys feeling? You guys know what do you guys think? They're getting, if I can pronounce his name correctly, McCade Brooks is. I apologize if that's not how his name is pronounced. It's going to be our Jimmy Olsen. I'm okay with it. I'll give him a chance. I just don't want to see Jimmy Olsen, this more lovable, slightly off geeky kind of guy, Spunky turn into like the jock man. I don't want to see him lose the essence of the character. McCade was on True Blood. If anyone watched that show, was it season 2, I think, where he played Eggs, Benedict, Eggs. But I'm okay. I'll let it go. Let's see here. As for I don't know. I want the show to be good, and I want the casting to be done well. I know that they talked about the villain for the pilot is going to be the character of Lumberjack. This is definitely a character I am not familiar with all my vast excuse me, knowledge of the DCU. I'm not certain of this Lumberjack character, but it's a villain that we haven't seen appear in any of the other DC shows, so that's a positive. I read it that it'll be the villain of the first episode, so I'm not sure if it'll be the season or the episode or where the Lumberjack will appear. But what are some of the villains that you want to find in this season? Who do you think should appear against Supergirl? Now here's the more interesting fact. There is supposed to be a reference that will reference her cousin. So are they going to reference Superman's existence in this universe? So I don't know how that's going to work, if it's supposed to connect to the Flash Arrowverse and there's no mention of Superman on that show or in that universe. You heard me before. I had theorized and talked about that I felt like this Supergirl would be kind of more of a Superman role, an amalgam of the Supergirl and Superman stories, because Superman doesn't exist in this universe. So I'm very, very interested to see how she'll come out. What are your thoughts? Hit me up at the end of this cast, because we're about to go into our next segment of Who is Kara Zor-El? All right, Kryptonians, let's check this out. What we're going to do now is we're going to break down, we're going to talk about Supergirl and her different incarnations. But first of all, we're going to talk about Kara Zor-El. Now, we're going to do Kara, but we're going to touch on the other ones because we know that the character of Supergirl is going to be Kara, but in some cases they'll mix different incarnations of the characters to make like amalgam style characters. We've seen this in cartoons and in live action with just Green Lantern. The film kind of had a Cal Jordan, Kyle Rayner vibe. The old 90s Flash had a little bit of Wally West mixed in with Barry Allen. So we'll talk about the different versions. But first of all, Kara. 56 years ago, in Action Comics number 252, May of 1959, came Kara. Now, Kara's character was the cousin of Kal-El sent to Earth. She came from the bottled city of Kandar, and she was sent to Earth. There's been many different versions of Kara. The version that were most commonly known, she was Jor-El's daughter. She was from Argo City, and she was sent here and ended up in an orphanage under the name of Linda Lee. Now, there's a lot of different tweaks that's been done to her character. During 1985, which is a long time from 1959 if you think about it, the biggest event to happen to Kara was she died during what's called the Infinite Crisis. In the Infinite Crisis, she sacrificed herself and was completely wiped out of the DC universe. Part of this was DC wanted to take Superman back to being the last Kryptonian. They had done so much with Zod, Faora, and some of the other Kryptonian villains in Supergirl. They wanted to take it back. So at this time, she was wiped. Now, what we're most familiar with is back in 2004, Kara's story was revamped a little bit. She was brought back as Kara Zor-El. She was sent here to watch over her cousin, Cal, but her ship was delayed. There's been differences. Some that she crashed early, but her casket wasn't open. Some say that it was just delayed, and that by the time she got here, her baby cousin had grown up. And if you're interested, check out Batman Superman from 2004 with Jeff Loeb, and they'll break down Kara's story. It's also adapted in the film that we'll review later, the Superman Batman film. Why did it escape my head? It's Batman Superman Apocalypse. There we go. Man. Now, some note things to point out. Kara has always had a little crush. They put her with Jimmy Olsen, which we're going to see Jimmy in the show. Kara did not exist during the death of Superman, which is a big deal if you think about it. Linda Danvers was the name that she adopted. Okay, that after the Linda Lee, because there later is a character that we'll talk a little bit about, maybe called Linda Lee Danvers, who takes on Supergirl's mantle. But I don't think we will because it's really confusing. Really confusing, but it might come up. But Supergirl is always Kara. She's the most famous. She's the one everyone knows. And I'll tell you a reason why I like Kara. One of the things I like about Kara is I like the fact that she's completely different than Superman. And you're like, duh, she's a girl. But no. The thing is, Superman grew up on Earth. He feels like an Earthling, a human to protect. When Kara gets here, Kara has no ties to us. Kara does not feel like she needs to do anything. Kara does not feel drawn to Earth. She doesn't need to use her powers to save us. And that's one of the biggest differences between Kara and Cal, is the fact that Cal wants to, and Kara really, in some aspects, could care less. And I think that makes it much more interesting, because here you have Cal Clark, who all he wants to do is have his cousin be just like him, the only family he has, but all she wants to do is return to Krypton. She wants her home back, and he just does not know how to deal with that. And I think it makes just a really nice play on their relationship. Now, she has appeared in multiple things. She was a version of Kara where she was from a planet near Krypton, appears in the Justice League of Luna TV series, because she hadn't come back into the DC universe at this time, so they hadn't done anything with her. She is also, if she appears in, like I said, Superman, Batman, Apocalypse, which we will be reviewing. Also, there's the film Supergirl, which we'll be reviewing. You can find her on Smallville Season 7, and it's a very good depiction of Kara. As far as, like I said, about Kara was supposed to watch over her cousin, but her cousin just happened to get here before she did, and it makes things a little more awkward. And Superman Unbound, the animated film, features Kara. Now, I'm excited for this character. I think it plays a good part in Superman's development. You know, we're gonna break down her character in each part, and just kind of figure out what we want to see from the show. So that's it for today. Find us on Twitter at KryptonDaughter. Also, SouthgateMediaGroup.com for all your news on Supergirl, Batman / Gotham, DC Universe, Flash Arrow. If you're into something, we've got a podcast for it. Check us out, SouthgateMediaGroup.com.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.